Hello and welcome to They've Been Doing It All Day, Sir. I'm Ben.
And I'm Chris.
And we're two Englishmen navigating a variety of sports Australia has to offer.
Brookie Oval regulars getting to grips with the NRL, life in a new country, and following any major sporting events coming up over the next couple of years. Join us on our adventures in the 2025 season, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. How's your week been, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Actually, quite busy. Started my new job yesterday, which I think has gone quite well for the first couple of days. And yeah, just getting used to the commute into an office again, which is something that I haven't done for a while. And in Sydney at the moment, there is absolute chaos on the trains, which is causing mass disruption. I think the union are playing games with the public, but we won't go into too much of that. But what about yourself? How's your week been?
Quite quiet so far, not going to lie. Made some beef barbacoa tacos over the weekend, which was really cool. They were very delicious. But no, other than that, just had coaching, which is really good, seeing the team develops and whatnot. So no, other than that, been quite a quiet few days.
How's the team shaping up? How did they reflect on the weekend before against the tournament against the mixed teams?
Yeah, they're reflecting really well from it. And as I said last week, it is a difficult scenario to be put in. There's an additional player. It was 6-a-side instead of 5-a-side, which is Nationals is. But now that they've come into it, the offense is looking really good now. There's a lot of competition within training sessions. And because we had so much talent come down, we are essentially sending two teams, which is really cool. So there is just that constant competition within training where the players know that they may be losing their position if they don't perform. So that's really, really helped out. And yeah, they're looking in good shape.
What is it? They say iron sharpens iron. So yeah, having people creating pressure, and there's another cliche one as well, pressure creates diamonds. So
yeah. All of those sporting cliches are happening right now.
Exactly. And did I see right on social media that there's an under-17 team as well that's going to be going? Is that to the Nationals?
Yeah. So boys and girls, that's happening the week before.
Okay.
Because a couple of our players, Pierre and Tamika, are both coaching. So they're stepping into those roles. So yeah, good luck to them as well.
Yeah, and only a couple of weeks away, I think. We said the start of March, so not too long to those. And they're out in Bankstown at the International Sports Stadium, right?
Yes, they are.
That's good. All right, well, last week we brought up a topic around could you take a fastball from Jasprit Bumrah? And you were fairly confident that you could take it, even with a slight edge, you might be able to take it. So we thought we'd kick this one off with some would you rathers. So the first one, would you rather score a last minute winner to win the league or save a last minute penalty for your team? So with that one, the last minute penalty to save, is that to win the league as well, or is that just in a game?
No. You're the goalkeeper. If it's you're 1-0 up or it's a draw, if the opposition score, you don't win the league. If you save it, you win the league, and the final whistle goes as soon as you save it.
The two examples that spring to mind with this one. So you've got obviously Sergio Aguero winning the Premier League, Balotelli to Aguero, and then you've got Almunia. Almunia saves again. So Leicester against Watford, who then I suppose it's a bit of both, really, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Almunia saves the penalty, and then Hogg Dane scores the winner down the other end. So. That's a big question. Would I rather? Do you know? I think I'd rather save the penalty. I think because of the odds against saving a penalty are so high, I think I'd rather go the saving the penalty route. But what do you think?
It's a very difficult one because obviously you go straight to your team. So I'm thinking as a Birmingham City fan, am I doing it at Wembley? Well, I won't be doing it at Wembley because it's for the league, but I'm doing it in front of the Tilton at home, or it could be away in front of 6,000-7,000 Blue Nose. Do I knock that ball in and go, or do I have 6,000-7,000 Blue Noses behind me and I save this penalty and the things erupts? But I think just going back from what I am as a footballing athlete, I suppose, is a goalkeeper. So it's definitely got to be the penalty save in the last minute to win the league.
You raise a fair point. Actually, I was a natural goalkeeper.
Oh, there we go.
Growing up as well, I think under 11's age or something like that, I won Manager's Player of the Year, conceded about 44 goals. Pretty sure it was in 10 games or something. Pretty sure it was a sympathy medal trophy. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, I was just rubbish outfield, so they stuck me in goal and I was all right, to be fair. So yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, you go with the next one. What you put down there?
Would you rather face an over from Brett Lee or run it straight 3 times against Olakuatu?
That's a tough one. I've seen, so was it Piers Morgan a number of years ago who took 6 balls against Brett Lee, and he was pretty hostile, obviously, towards
Sure,
Piers
he broke
Morgan.
a rib as well.
Yeah, and he was jumping out of the way quite a lot and been just receiving them in the ribs. You're wearing a helmet, right, in cricket, so I think obviously you're going to be scared about near 100-mile-an-hour ball pinging you in the lid, but you do have protection against that ball. It's more your ribs, your bones, your sternum, your forearm, everything. If you're padded up to the hilt, then I don't know. But to me, running one-on-one at Haumole Olakuatu straight without being able to deviate left or right and him going 100%, I think would be a lot more devastating than receiving a cricket ball from Brett Lee. They'd both absolutely kill, but I think the run it straight is definitely the worst out of the 2 options.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Even though I probably wouldn't be able to see a ball coming out of Brett Lee's hand, I will get hit left, right and centre. I've been folded enough times playing rugby over here by some rather large gentlemen to know that is not nice, and then to be able to then pick it up to a professional level against someone who's just even denser and even heavier, I couldn't think of anything worse. So yeah, I'd definitely go for the over.
They're
by Brett
solid
Lee.
human beings, solid as human beings. But the last one then that we'll go to, would you rather have a free season ticket for life, but you have to go to every game in full kit, or never go to a match again?
It's quite simple. I'm full kit in shin pads, boots. Like I don't think there's anything that would stop me from going down to the Blues or going down to Manly. I can't miss that. So yeah, get me in my shin pads. I'm going full kit.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that's an easy one. I think we might be even doing that for the British and Irish Lions when it comes. So hopefully be able to get on some TV cameras or something somewhere. Just see us in our full kit in the background. But I think that's an easy one. Free season ticket for life.
Promote the pod.
Indeed. Keeping with the football side of things then, we've touched on Birmingham. How did Birmingham get on this week?
Beat Charlton 1-0. So that's quite another good win. Birmingham have only lost twice this season in the league, and one of them was against Charlton, so it was nice to get a little bit of a revenge back, I suppose.
Who's your striker that seems to be scoring every week?
Jay Stansfield.
Yeah, I don't know much about Birmingham's team, but every Instagram post that I see, he's leaning on a corner flag after he scores.
Just 20 million down the drain. Jay Stansfield scores again.
Of course, of course.
No, it's he was only 7-15, so we won't go into that. No, he's just everywhere. He's very much finding his feet. He's going to be a very, very good player. And he's just consistent. He just doesn't stop. And then you've got Alfie May, who comes on, who's an absolute League One workhorse, who then chases everything down as well. So we're now 9 points clear at the top of the league with a game in hand, and possibly 2 games in hand by this weekend, as we've got a big semi-final against Bradford tomorrow morning in the Football League Trophy. So I'll be up at 7 o'clock watching that.
Do you know who the game in hand in the league's against, or one at least the one now?
I think one of them would be. I think one of them's Peterborough. I'm going to say Peterborough, but I'm not too sure about who the other one is.
Should be 3 points.
You'd think, yeah. You don't want to get too cocky, but the way we've been playing, you'd expect that's 6 points to add on. So yeah. But how are Chelsea getting on?
I think I said last week about getting knocked out in the cup by Brighton, playing them again this week, and Kunku being up front. Let's see how it goes. I saw something that we have given Brighton 225 million. We took their ex-manager. We took their head of player recruitment or something, and we've just had 5 goals stuck past us in under a week. We've been knocked out of the FA Cup, and we've been embarrassed by them. So it's been a terrible week. I do not know what's going on at Chelsea. We've got a few injuries, but we went on a bit of a hot streak. Everyone was, I think at one point we were 2 points behind Liverpool. They had a game in hand still, but it was a case of, Chelsea could finish top 4 here. And it seems like since then, everything has fallen off. There's nothing at the back. Our goalkeeper's terrible. We're changing players too much. We've got no threat up front. Nicholas Jackson's injured. He, like I said last week, he's the worst striker in the Premier League. Who's behind that? Christopher Nkunku, who was meant to be sold in January. So it's just a sorry state of affairs. I think we won't finish in the top 4 at this point. I think we'll struggle to make the European places, even though there might be 5 Champions League spots up for grabs. So we'll just see how it goes. But everyone loves a few Chelsea tears, and I suppose there's a few of them there.
Yeah. You'll get no sympathy from me. All these, whenever it's always quite funny whenever I hear a fan of the big 6, so to speak, moaning. Never get any sympathy. You don't know what hardship is until you've had an owner that's been thrown into prison. So I think we'll just leave that one there.
Well, when Birmingham are successful and they've got their millions, and it's the American consortium that's come in and taken them there.
We've got the American consortium that's taken us there. So
you're on the way.
Yeah, another sort of championship is starting just around the corner. Well, starting tomorrow actually. The ICC Champions Trophy is upon us.
Let's take a look at the tournament. There's some tough groups out there. In Group A, we've got Bangladesh, India, New Zealand and Pakistan. And in Group B, we have Afghanistan, Australia, England and South Africa. What are your initial thoughts seeing those 2 groups?
England aren't making it to the semis.
100% agree.
I think within that group, they could close against Afghanistan, who are incredible with the shorter formats of the game. South Africa are in a bit of form. Australia are just, as we mentioned, are very good. I think it's more of how poor England are at the moment, and against an Afghanistani team that's going to have some spinners. I can't see England coming out of that group. I think it'll be Australia, South Africa up against India and New Zealand for those semi-final spots. I don't think Pakistan will make it through. I think their short format game is a bit of a problem at the moment as well. But they have recently had that mini tournament with New Zealand and I believe it was Sri Lanka. I think it'll be India-Australia final, just like the ODI World Cup. And I think...
Who do you reckon wins it then?
Just because of where it is, I think India. I think it'll be India, Australia, and India win it. All depending on how their batsmen go, because they rely heavily on their sort of top order with the likes of Kohli.
Who doesn't love pressure.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see how India go for sure. I think England could cause a surprise. I don't think they'll get out of the group. If they do, they perform really well. But then when they get to the semi-final, I think being in Pakistan, I think it'll be India and Pakistan that make it through that group. I got a feeling that what they did against South Africa the other day, I think is enough to give them hope that they can maybe get an early win. Bangladesh is probably the easiest fixture out of the 2 groups for all of them. So I think it'll be Pakistan, New Zealand fighting for that second spot, and I think Pakistan might beat them. And then from there, I think the Group B, who comes out of that, Australia and South Africa. And I think that'd leave us with... I'd love to see it. I'd love to see an India-Pakistan final.
That would be unreal.
I think it'd be the most watched sporting event in history. But I do think India will walk away with it. I do think they'll be crowned ICC champions. Dark horses for it, I think, are Afghanistan. They've always kind of... They can turn it on their day, but I don't think they've got enough firepower. But you never know. They might sneak a victory against Australia or South Africa. I think it will be really close against England. So if they make it to the semi-final, anything can happen. But I think one of the worst performers out there could be us in the whole tournament. But we'll see how it goes. Like barring Bangladesh, no disrespect to Bangladesh, but I don't think they're as quality as the other sides. But I think England will be the biggest underperformers of the tournament.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that. Like I say, so it was South Africa who Pakistan had been playing in that mini tournament, not Sri Lanka. But yeah, it's such not a great time to be an England fan in cricket. But you never know. You could have England as the dark horses coming in with this. They've absolutely played a great hand of showing the world how poor they are at ODI and go and smash him 400-500 each innings in the world in this tournament.
The old false sense of security, getting battered 8-0 across 2 short format tournaments, and then all of a sudden pull it out and win the ICC Trophy, but Champions Trophy. I'm not too sure. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, kicks off tomorrow, so that's Wednesday in Australia. It would be Wednesday around the world everywhere, but it doesn't matter. Kicks off tomorrow, and then England are playing on Saturday against Australia. That'll be the first game that we see whether we're going to be woeful or decent. Some more news that we touched on last week in terms of international player pathway out of the NFL.
Yep.
It was announced today that Lewis Rees-Zammit has signed to the active roster for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's a huge step in the right direction for someone from the UK, for a British athlete to make it, but also an athlete from cross-code again. But this time, obviously, with Jordan Mailata, played for the Rabbitohs at a under 17 or under 20 age, and then got taken on by the NFL. But with Lewis Rees-Zammit, he actually played high-level rugby union, represented the Lions, Wales, and then decided to take the leap from that sport, rugby union, to the NFL. But incredible journey. It'll be great to see how he goes next year. Very versatile athlete. Where he plays, I'm not too sure, but be interesting to see what he does.
I think he's going to be a returner mainly. Especially with how the new kickoff is in the NFL. I think it would very much suit him. Being able to see gaps and dive through straight away. So yeah, it'd be it was very good for the sort of the international side when it comes to pathways for players, and I suppose just shows what a state Welsh rugby is in. At the moment, your star player decides to go and join the NFL and instead of representing Wales. So, but yeah, good luck to him, and I hope he does well and puts a bit of a stamp on the NFL.
Continuing with the NRL, saw the one and only Manly Sea Eagles make their pre-season debut this weekend. Great win against the Rabbitohs. I thought it was a good showing from what can be considered some of our second string players. A few starters out there, but some of the second string boys. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, very, very good defensively. I think it was a very even game. Just set after set after set, which was really good to see. That they were able to just withhold the pressure, because the Rabbitohs were very much in the Manly half for the first 15-20 minutes of that. And it was just a constant defensive sound. A lot of the backs were, you'd say, second grade, maybe New South Wales Cup.
Performed so well.
Really well. Really well. There's a lot of attacking pressure in that, which was great to see.
One thing I said last week, though, my biggest fear about pre-season friendlies is injuries, and one of Manly's big boys, Taniela Paseka.
Yeah.
AC joint. It's come out that it's only a grade 1, so he should be fine, but it's something that, as mentioned on the commentary, that's something he's going to have the whole season. It's not going to have time to heal. He's going to have to get jabbed up. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes, but he's going to be ready for round 1 against the Cowboys.
It's just going to be, I think it's going to be stinger after stinger whenever he makes a hit, which is the important thing. I mean, he may have a bit of extra padding on there to hold it, but I don't know what you really can do, because it's where you hit people.
Yeah.
Like you say, it'll probably be a case of just dosing up with the injections and just seeing how they go. What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on the game?
I was actually quite impressed. When you go into a pre-season, you don't know what to expect, and you can't judge too much on it. Like, I'm not going to say that the Rabbitohs are written off after they put so much pressure on, couldn't put anything in, and then all of a sudden they brought it back within the last 10 minutes. But I was really impressed by Jake Simkin. I thought he did well at 9. Clayton Falado, the fullback, he really impressive. But then you hear that he was a top try scorer in the New South Wales Cup a couple of years ago, and that seems like it's transferring. So that's another one to add to the depth of who we have at fullback and winger. So that's really impressive. And then Navrin Willett, the
winger,
Now, he is massive. I mentioned that I took my son to the Manly Open Day a couple of weeks ago, and he was there. He was running one of the drills, and he was head and shoulders above absolutely everyone, along with Jason Saab. So 2 wingers that are around 2 meters tall could be an absolute threat moving forward.
And that's what I think is like, it'd be against the teams who have a smaller back three. Considering Travojevic will be playing full back as well, and he isn't exactly the shortest of people. He's a good 6'4", 6'5", and then you've got Saab and Willett who are 6'5", 6'6", respectively. If you're coming up against a team who've got a smaller back three, surely you just go air raid both corners, get them up above everyone else, and just plucking the ball out of the air. And get into the centres just on their heels, just waiting for that little pop down.
I think so. It definitely could be an option.
100%. It should be an option. Even though I think you mentioned there Clayton Folau.
We're going to have to work on our pronunciations for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. His kicking has something to be less than divided. Like, it wasn't the best off the tee. Made 3 out of 7, so that's
but as I said last year, we have Ruben Garrick, the best goal kicker in the league. I cursed that. The background story behind that, I think it was the Raiders game actually that we lost at 4 Pines Park, Brookie Oval, where I think I said he was the best kicker in the league, and then he went on to miss. I think he only converted like 50% of his kicks or something like that,
and we lost
by 6 points, which would have been those kicks. But anyway, we go on, and Garrick has been named today to start against the Panthers next weekend. But Panthers are obviously going to Vegas. They're going to be rolling out a C team. It's a time to get minutes in the legs, but
you can't take anything from it. It's going to be good this again to see how players are getting the minutes in their legs and how they're reacting to set plays and things like that. But yeah, you can't take anything from that game. But it'd be then interesting to see how Panthers then go on in Las Vegas, and then how Manly then play against the Cowboys the week after.
So. Absolutely buzzing for week 1 though. Cannot wait for it one bit. But let's get on to how we think the season is going to go. So first off, before we get into predicting our ladder, our 17-1 ladder, how do you think you'd be able to do this in the Premier League? What do you reckon your level of accuracy would be when you were up to date with Premier League football, when Birmingham were flying high, which hopefully they will be again soon? How do you reckon you would have done in this?
I reckon I could have got a good 60-70% correct from like game 1 to the end of the season. I reckon it would have been quite high. Whereas this, if I get more than 20-30%, I think I'm going to be absolutely buzzing, because one of the things I've noticed within doing this is, especially for the NRL, there's so much you can't predict. Like last year, who would have thought the Rabbitohs would have gone the way they would have done?
Yeah.
Who would have thought like sort of the Eels as well? Like so there's those teams that are in there that just fall off just because they fall off. Broncos, everyone was expecting the Broncos to be in the top 2 or even win it, and they were nowhere near the team they were the season before. So I found this a lot harder than when you would with the Premier League, because especially when you say Birmingham were last in the Premier League, this is 15 years ago now. You'd go Man United, Chelsea, Tottenham maybe, depending on how good they were, City, Liverpool.
Yeah, for me, I think the fact that we've only really followed this sport for the last 3 years as well. I think that first season that we were watching Manly, we really only focused on
learning the players' names.
On Manly, and just understanding the game. And then last year, we started to invest a bit. We started to invest a bit more, keep an eye on who was going around the league. We went to the grand final, all that sort of stuff. But this year, I think, because I'm getting to know the game more, I listen to a lot more podcasts. There's a lot of information that you can gather out there. I think it's certainly difficult because for me, I think there's certainly a top 2 out there that stand out, and then anyone below that, I think, can finish anywhere. They're like with a few exceptions, which we'll go through in a second. But I genuinely think it's so difficult to predict because of how things unfold. Like, injuries are a huge thing that could derail a team for the whole year. But what we're going to do is predict our 17. We'll reflect on it probably halfway through the season to see how we're going, and then maybe see how they line up at the end of the year as well. But do you want to kick us off with who do you think is going to get the wooden spoon?
I'm going to go with the Gold Coast Titans.
Interesting.
The reason for this was when you say you can't really read much into preseason, they played against the Broncos at the weekend and had a fairly strong team out against Broncos' second, third string, and they got absolutely pummeled. They let in 50 points, which is mad. And you've got the likes of David Fafita on the field as a sort of a leader, and that sort of thing's happening. And I don't think they've done too much business outside of that, and I just can't see them having a very good season.
I'll let you know in a sec where my Titans are, but
they finished where they finished last year. They finished 14th last year, and they had the Eels, Rabbitohs below them, who are completely different teams this year. So I just can't see them improving to the standard of the other teams around them.
I agree, somewhat. I think this is a really tough one for the wooden spoon. I think a lot of teams that finished around the bottom of the ladder last year have improved. I think the Rabbitohs obviously now got Wayne Bennett as their coach, which will make a massive difference. I think the Tigers have recruited well. Some big names that have come in. I think the Eels have recruited well. The Titans will have Big Tino back in the middle, in the pack, which I think will make a big difference. My wooden spoon. Oh, this is a bit of a rogue one, but I think the Canberra Raiders are going to finish bottom of the ladder. They got Big Sticky Ricky in charge, which I don't think he'd let it happen. But compared to kind of the players that they've bought in and who's left, I think they've lost a lot of experience. And I was listening to Gus Gall's podcast earlier or it was on YouTube around talking about kind of reviewing how they've been, how they did last season. And he says they're taking the approach of like investing in youth.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a transition period. And I think this is the kind of year that if you don't get a good start, then you could be in trouble. They had 12 wins, 12 losses last year. Not great defensively last year. They conceded over 600 points, which is some of the worst. It's definitely ranks in the lower half, even though they made the 8. Or they missed out on the 8 last year, didn't they?
I think they did just miss out.
Yeah, sorry, they just missed out on the 8 last year on 9th. And if they had they finished 9th. If they had a better defensive record, they might have snuck in. But I don't know. I don't know if they've strengthened much. Don't know much about them, and that's why I put them in 17th. Shall I go with my 16th pick?
Yeah.
Again, this might be a rogue one because of what I just said about the signings that they made, but I think the West Tigers are going to finish second bottom. I think they're going to miss out on the wooden spoon. I think they've done enough for signings and brought in experience not to get a wooden spoon. But I don't know whether, not knowing much about the sport in terms of his history, but Benji Marshall hasn't made the biggest impression on me as a head coach. It doesn't seem like he's got them moving in the right direction, even though they beat Manly last year at Leichhardt Oval, which we were at. Now, in saying this, I do think that they have the ability within the squad to finish as high as 10th, but potentially also with the wooden spoon at the same time. So I think the Tigers are going to finish 16th. Who have you got?
Okay, I've gone, and sorry, Tom, if you're listening to this, mate. I've gone the Knights. I think they rely so heavily on Kalen Ponga, and he's very injury prone, and I don't see him going through a full season. They had a pretty decent season last year in finishing in the 8th. I don't know whether that's their sort of ceiling. They've got Bradman Best there as well. No, he's still in there, but again, he is a little bit injury prone. If you lose those two, I don't think they've got much behind them, no. and that's the worry for me from that side of things. So yeah, I've got them at 16, and then at 15, I've got the Wars.
The what? The Wars.
Yeah. Again, pretty similar. Sort of they've not been what they were in that 2023 season, was it?
2 years ago, yeah.
Where they were incredible, and they've massively dropped off since then.
They all hit career form in that year, though.
Yeah, and teams do, and they need to go back and then reset. I know that they have signed Fisher Harris from Penrith, which is like a bit of a homecoming for him, which is brilliant. But yeah, I just don't see them doing too much, and they've just lost old mate on the wing,
Zelezniak.
Zelezniak
broke his wrist, didn't he?
Who, like you say, if they don't get that good start, as I said, he's been scoring near enough every game for them. That's a lot of tries to try and fill.
They're out in Vegas actually, week 1,
and they're playing Penrith as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and then they've got, or are they playing the Sharks? We'll just check that one. But they've then got, they're coming to 4 Pines Park. Oh no, they're not. They're at home in New Zealand, week 2. But that could be a difficult start for them.
Yeah, very much so.
In 15th, I've gone with the Parramatta Eels.
Okay.
I'm a bit undecided around where they can finish. They've had a very high turnover of players, but they brought in some quality in Lomax and Addo Carr.
Mm-hmm.
They have lost a very big leader in Regan Campbell-Gillard. He's gone to the Titans. I think it'll be determined on if they can improve the defensive side of things. So they conceded the second most points behind the Tigers last year, which is a concern. I think they could be spoon contenders if they make a poor start. They've got Melbourne up first, then the Tigers, which is a winnable game. Then they've got the Bulldogs, and then they've got the Seagulls. So they could be 4 losses down in the first 4 weeks. Then we could be talking spoon from there, because beyond their starting 13, I don't know what depth they've got. So I got the Eels at 15, and then at 14, I've got the Gold Coast Titans. So,
okay.
Got them. I think they're a good physical pack. I think they've got some big boys. They brought in Regan Campbell-Gillard, David Fafita, and Tino, however you pronounce his surname. I'm not even going to try. I'll butcher it. But Big Tino in the pack. They've definitely added talent. But last year, they had such a poor start. They didn't win until round 8. The only points that they picked up were from a bye. Tino did play in the first 2 games. Then he unfortunately tore his ACL. Might make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, David Fafita was there last year. Kieran Foran is aging. From all the reports that I heard when he was at Manly, he was being held together by elastic tape, and his body was falling apart. So how many more years can he go on? Okay. But then I also heard last year that he was in the shape of his life, so you never know. But they were very poor defensively last year, and they've kicked off the preseason with a 50-point. They've conceded 50 points, so we'll see where they go. But 14th, I've got the Titans. Who have you got at 14th?
I've got the Dolphins. Pretty solid team, to be honest. They're just there or thereabouts within what they can do. I think they're a very, very good home team, but don't really seem to travel well, which within the NRL you need to be able to do. I just think they're going to be very placid. They're not going to really do much. I think they'll have some very exciting games, but yeah, I think they're just going to be that sort of mid-table team again, and just sort of squeeze into nothingness, I suppose.
Yeah.
Their end of this season is going to be absolutely nothing. But then in 13th, I've gone for the Dragons.
Okay.
I know they've lost big Ben Hunt, but I just think they've got enough to be able to sort of maintain some sort of standing, which is what you sort of need to do. They've brought in Valentine Holmes, Clint Gutherson as well. So reading from the reports from the scrimmage against Manly, he was at fullback screaming, marshalling the field. So he's a good addition into that sort of team. So yeah, I know they've lost Lomax, as I said, Ben Hunt, but I think they'll just do enough to again just be there with the Dolphins.
Yeah, and kind of I've reflected a similar in 13th. I've got the Dolphins, I think. So sort of you put them at 14th, I put them at 13th. Mid-table finish. They just missed out on the 8 last season. They had a very equal differential on points, -1. I think losing Wayne Bennett will have a massive impact on them, although they brought in Christian Wolf, I think his name is, who has been, I can't remember, James Graham speaks a lot about him and the positive impact that he's having on, kind of has had on him, so he thinks he'll do really well. But I've got the Dolphins finishing in 13th. And then at 12th, I've gone with the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They were terrible. Okay. They were terrible last year. But they've recruited back super coach Wayne Bennett, but I'm not sure about them. They could go well. I think they're in a pool of about 10 teams that could finish anywhere.
This period, like you said at the start, it's so interchangeable. Like I can't go, yes, this is a definite. But no.
Yeah. So my Rabbitohs. I put my 12th pick as the Rabbitohs.
I've gone the Eels.
Ooh.
Okay. I know you said sort of defensively last year they were poor, which they were, but they've brought in Lomax and Adokar on the wings. It'd be stupid not to play Lomax on the wing. I'm sorry, he's an incredible winger. And you've got Mitchell Moses as well. And when you look at that origin, where Mitchell Moses was playing instead of Nico Hines, his chemistry with Lomax helped New South Wales.
This is a very good point, but one thing you've just reminded me of by saying his name, and now that we've both revealed the Eels where they're going to be, is that there's a lot of unrest at the moment, it appears, of players wanting to leave Parramatta in Mitch Moses, and I read someone else earlier apparently being offered a 10-year deal around for 12 million or something like that. I can't remember who it was, but they might be a bit unsettled, and that's maybe, I've just thought of that as just reinforced my feeling of the Eels finishing lower down. But anyway, your predictions.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. With everything being nice and sunny in Parramatta, I think they'll have some very good attacking games. I think they'll have Mitchell Moses is incredible. And if we go into Origin picks, I think he's very hard to move from 7 from last year. But that's a different conversation. And they've got some players in there as well. So I'm a big fan of Kelma Tuolangi. When he was at Manly a couple of years ago, he was a standout for me in that 2023 season. He'd come on and cause absolute havoc. And
with his scrum cap on.
Yeah, with his scrum cap on. And he did the same sort of last year for Parramatta. They've still got the likes of Junior Paolo in there as well.
Big boy, yeah.
Who's a very heavy set gentleman. So yeah, I reckon they're if they can hold up their defence, I think their attacking will beat some teams. Especially, as I said, you've got Adokar on one wing and Lomax on the other. That's a scary partnership to come up against.
Indeed.
And then at 11, I've got Raiders. Unlike you, I think they're going to have a similar season to last year, and just build on from where they sort of went from sort of last year. Again, I don't think they'll get into the 8, but I think they'll have another decent season.
Yeah.
Just sort of a solid team again, like this. What I've been saying here about Raiders, Parramatta, Dolphins,
I think
it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think they're going to set up the NRL alight, but I think they'll be there or thereabouts. They'll have some interesting wins. And yeah, that's what I think of the Raiders so far.
At 11, I've gone for the North Queensland Cowboys, Manly's first opponent. Now, they've lost a lot of experience and points in Valentine Holmes and Kyle Felt. I think they did well to make the 8 last year. They might have started... In fact, they started well and then fell off, I think it was. But they gave up the most points in the 8 last year. So with losing so much experience, not replacing them that much, I can't see them making the 8. Again, 11th could be generous, but I think they've still got the possibility of finishing that high. It could be a lot lower. In my first draft of this, I did have them finishing 16th, and I was like, nah, Ben, don't be stupid, come on. It's Cowboys. But then in 10th, I've gone for the Warriors. They missed the 8 last year after a wonder season the year before. We touched on that. I think it might be the same. They've lost their star winger, but they have managed to bring in Mr. Maori himself, James Fisher-Harris, He'll bring leadership, but they also, again, on the flip side of that, have lost a lot of experience in Sean Johnson and Tohu Harris, who retired suddenly before the start of the season. So I've got them finishing, 10th, just outside the 8.
Okay. I've gone at 10. This could be very rogue. I've gone West Tigers.
I can see it happening. I can also see it happening.
I've got the feeling it's going to be the Bulldogs effect, with bringing in Jerome Luai, Tariva as well.
Yep.
Already having Lachlan Galvin there, who's a very good player at his age. I was reading somewhere the other day that there was a prediction for him to be in the State of Origin 2030 team as a lock. The boy will have to put on some size to be able to get there. They've brought in Skelton as well from the Bulldogs.
Yep, good player.
They've done some fantastic recruitment this off-season.
I can't argue. It's just whether Benji can do it. Yeah. That's my...
I think you... If you have a look at Jerome Luai and Stephen Crichton, they've the same personality. They have that sort of same leadership in them. And I think Stephen Crichton, completely went in and changed that Bulldogs mentality.
I'll talk about the Bulldogs in a bit, but yeah.
And I think Jerome Luai is going to have the same effect. And we've seen Jerome can do it without Nathan as well.
But he has a very good supporting cast around him.
So's Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, but what I mean by that, is that at the Tigers, there's okay, they've recruited well, but there's not other people. Look, I don't disagree with you. I think the Tigers, thought they could finish 10th or anywhere from that.
But the thing is as well, we were there last year at Leichhardt Oval, Tigers versus Manly, and they ripped us apart. They're just so inconsistent with those performances. They have them performances in them, and that was with a team without Jerome Luai. That was a team without Skelton. You're adding into that team. Taruva is one of the best finishers in the game.
Yeah, they've lost their best forward to the Storm in Atoya Kamano, but they have brought in Terrell May. So
yeah, so that's why I've got them. I think that they could just be outside of the 8.
Yeah, who have you got at 9 then?
I've gone for the Roosters.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm just hearing rumblings out of the camps. And with all my contacts that I have within rugby league, absolutely zero. I just think they're having a bit of a reset year, which I think they've come out and said again it could be absolute rubbish, and that they're doing it to sort of hide the fact they're absolutely building into something in the camps. But yeah, I think they're just going to have a pretty much of an off year this year. They've only brought in Chad Townsend from the Cowboys. They haven't done much in the market, but saying that they've got some absolute animals within there. Spencer Leniu, as you mentioned, Angus Crichton, who's he was incredible last season. Victor Radley as well. Give a shout out to him as he plays for England. So with a very strong Australian accent, you can't falter on that. So yeah, I think they'll just have a reset year. They'll be there or thereabouts, but I just don't think they'll have enough to get into the 8.
Yeah, fair. I've gone at 9, the Newcastle Knights. You've put them quite low down.
Yeah, I actually think 16th.
Yeah, I think they're going to be middle of the road. Not really sure too much about them, the players that are left that they've signed, but Bradman Best, Dane Gagai, Kalen Ponga, I reckon they'll be there or thereabouts compared to last season. Okay. So 9th, I've gone for the Newcastle Knights. And then at 8, I've gone for the Dragons.
Okay.
I actually think they're going to make the 8, and I think they've had the best off-season recruitment out of all the teams in the NRL, maybe on par with the Tigers. I think bringing in Valentine Holmes, Damien Cook, Clint Gutherson, Lockie Ilias is a lot of experience or talent to bring in as well. I think they look good against the Roosters at the weekend in the preseason. All right, you can't read much from it. Fairly strong side, but the first half. But I think they'll be in the race for the 8. I think they've. I think they're definitely up there, and I think they'll just sneak in.
I've got Rabbitohs just sneaking in. I think bringing Wayne Bennett back, Rabbitohs should have been there or thereabout last year. They have enough talent within that squad to have been within the 8 last year. They've got Latrell Mitchell there, who I'm hearing has lost around 10 kilos, and he's coming back
fit
and coming back as a different player.
Yeah.
They've done some all right. They've brought in a Lewis Dodd, who was
British guy.
Yeah, from St Helens.
Apparently, Wayne Bennett didn't know who he was,
which is always quite good when you're meeting your head coach.
Yeah.
He adds a little bit of something different. You've got Jai Gray, who looked really good at fullback at the weekend. This little absolute little pocket rocket that comes out of nowhere, and does bits. And then you've got Jamie Humphreys, who's come from Manly.
The geezer's enormous.
They've signed two players from Manly, and Josh Schuster as well. But Josh Schuster, I think, is very much...
Who knows what's going on with him?
Yeah, very much a waste of time. But Jamie Humphreys, I think, as a Manly fan, very sort of gutted that he's left.
He looked good with the one game that he played last year. He looked pretty
good. When DCE was out, and he looked solid. So yeah, I think they're going to I think having Wayne back is going to just push them that extra mile.
Who you got as 7th?
I've got the Cowboys at 7. I think that they'll sort of be solid as they were last year. Sort of finishing 5th last year. I know they've lost some points within sort of Val Holmes, as mentioned, but they've still got Dryden in there, who is an absolute workhorse, who will be able to sort of push them around and push through them. They've signed a couple of boys from Manly as well, in Jackson Parlow and Cole Loughton. So yeah, I think I'll have the Cowboys at 7. What about yourself?
I've gone Roosters.
Okay.
At 7. Now, they've lost a lot of players. I think they've lost the biggest group of players out of everyone. Joey Manu and Joseph Suoliti to Rugby Union. Kiri and Jared Warrior-Hargreaves to the Super League. Terrell May to the Tigers and Tupanua. I think they've lost a lot of talent. So I don't think they're going to finish as high as they did last year, but I still think they've got enough in there to make it. I've got a lot of time for Angus Crichton. You've mentioned him. Back fence Spence, love him. And Victor Radley, Victor the Inflictor, certainly someone. I think they'll be in the 8. Where they finish could be anywhere. I don't think they'll make the top 4, good enough to make the top 4, but they'll definitely be in there somewhere. Okay, and then at 6, I've got the Bulldogs. So I'm predicting them not to do a Warriors. I think they've got the crowd behind them from last season. I definitely think they're there or thereabouts.
Yep.
They'll feel hard done by losing to Manly, and they want to get back into the 8. So I think that's going to spur them on. And I absolutely love Stephen Crichton. I think he's a great leader, and I don't think he'll let standards drop. So I've got them finishing 6th.
I think the first one that we've actually got spot on together. Yeah, I've got Bulldogs at 6. Completely, pretty much the same thought process as yourself. Is I think Stephen Crichton is an absolute general. I think he's going to just keep the standards so high in that team from what he's learned at the Panthers about maintaining a standard. They've got hard done by. They'll feel they got hard done by against Manly in the finals last year, and I think they're just going to continue improving. To be honest, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they can keep that momentum going. And then at 5, I've gone Sharks.
Ooh.
With Nico Hines not being in State of Origin this year, I think that is going to help them in the sense of he doesn't have the distractions of Origin, because he's not an Origin player at the moment. We've seen that the last couple of years he's come on in Origin. First year in 2023 he came on as a centre, which he's not a centre. You need him in the middle. You need him being your playmaker. And without that sort of pressure and knowing that around the corner, if they can keep him all year and just pulling his strings, I think they'll have a very, very good season. They've also brought in Fanua Blake within the pack, who is an absolute animal of a man who's building up a very good pack as it is. Who's backing up a very good pack. So I think I've got them at 5.
At 5, I've gone with the Brisbane Broncos.
Okay.
At 5, I think they've got a squad that is stacked with talent.
Yeah.
They've gained only one real signing. They've gained in Ben Hunt coming back home. New coach coming in, Michael Maguire, who did absolute wonders with New South Wales, I feel, last year. He just needs to get the best out of the squad.
Yep.
They could be in the top 4, but the 4 teams I've got ahead of them, I think, are better. And it'll be interesting to see. There's been a lot of reports coming out of Brisbane around our players not being happy with pre-season, all that sort of stuff. But then you hear the people that know people inside the campus saying, no, I absolutely love it. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. So I've gone Broncos at 5, and then at 4, I've gone with the Cronulla Sharks, pretty much in reflecting what you said. Fanua Blake, absolute great addition to what is already a strong pack. McInnes always looks like he's run through a brick wall. I don't think I've ever seen him play a game where he hasn't got a cut on his face or anything like that. I think their season is all dependent on how Nico Hines goes. It seems like the Sharks always go through a terrible patch at some point within the season. But I definitely think they're strong enough to finish in the top 4. It just depends how terrible that terrible patch is that they go through. So I've got the Sharks sneaking into my top 4. Who've you got in?
I've got Brisbane.
We've gone reverse.
Little switcheroo.
Yeah.
Little switcheroo. Completely back what you said. Their team is absolutely stacked. You just look through it. Patrick Carrigan, absolute animal in the pack, alongside Payne Haas. You got Reece Walsh. If he's back to anything if he was close to in 2023, incredible player to have on the field. Again, a player that can open up open up a team. Reminds me of a little bit of Marcus Smith at fullback. He's just got that one step in him that can change a defensive scene. Salen Cobbo, I think, is one of my favourite players in the NRL. I just love him. He's an absolute animal on the wing.
He's a chunky winger.
He's a very chunky winger, but he's athletic. He can fly into the corner, which is incredible to see. So I think having Madge up there, which must be quite interesting for him after absolutely
tearing apart Queensland,
and then being like sort of the coach of their sort of their peer in like number 1 team,
especially with Suoli taking Walsh's head off as well, and like the aftermath of that. It's an interesting one. But sorry, carry on.
But then you've also got Adam Reynolds, absolute playmaker, who is one of the most consistent kickers in the league as well.
Yep.
So that's why I've got them in there. And then, as you mentioned, Ben Hunt coming back, so that's why I've got them at 4.
Interesting. All right, let's go with our top 3 then. Who have you got coming in at 3rd?
I've gone Manly.
I've gone Manly as well at 3. So I'll say I don't think you can see outside Penrith and Melbourne in the top 2.
No.
And like, as much as my heart wanted to say, Manly are the best team in the league and they're going to win it all, you have to think logically about this. So why have you got Manly in 3rd?
For that, I think we'll touch on the Storm and Penrith in a minute. But I think this is going to be a push on from last year. Manly have got so much depth now; it's scary. One of the things that Manly really liked last year was depth in the pack, which has now arrived in Jazz Tavega and Takiaho. So with Takiaho arriving, and then Michael Cheekam as well, adding to a pack that's already got the likes of Paseka, Ethan Bullymore, who just does not stop, Jake Chivojevic, and then arguably the best player within that pack in Ala Kawatu. Is scaring, and our backs look incredible. I think when you look at if Turbo can stay fit all year, that's a shoe-in for Manly in the top 3. You've then got the likes of Lehigh Hapuate, Tommy Talau as well. Like Tommy Talau, I read so much about Tommy Talau being kicked out of the team. I'm like, I think he was the most consistent performer for Manly last year. Absolutely killed it. Then on the other side, you got Garrick, and then who you play on the other wing is probably Saab, but I've got my reservations about Saab, which we'll touch in further
throughout the season as he makes mistakes.
And then you got Brooks and DCE, who were incredible. Talking about, I know we talked about a lot about rugby union recently, and Tom Curry hitting anything moves. Luke Brooks is the exact same. I've never seen a man so small been never scared of hitting something so big running at him. So So yeah, that's why I've got them at 3.
Yeah, very, very similar. I think if Turbo stays fit, we stand a very good chance of cementing that 3rd spot. I think we do have enough backup now in the players that have emerged to switch people around. Hopewati at fullback, Kohler at fullback, either of them on the wing. Like, I think there's versatility in our back line, which we struggled with before when Turbo was down. So he is still a key playmaker, obviously, in the team, one of the best players in the NRL. But we do have depth. I think we need to be better defensively, and on the edges is where we need to get better. Hopefully they've been working on that in pre-season, but I am very excited for what this Manly team can do this year. This all could come back to shoot us in the foot when we play Cowboys round 1, but I think Brookie's going to be rocking. I think the atmosphere, we played 12 games at Brookie Oval this year, so it'll be good to get 12 wins out of 12 at home. Second, who have you got as runner-up for the minor premiership this year?
Penrith.
I've also gone Penrith second.
I just don't see anyone really doing any damage to the Storm. I think they're going to be consistent, going to be angry from sort of last year, and also Penrith have kept and have pretty much got a very similar team. They lose Jerome Luai and they bring in Blaise Talangi, who was arguably one of the best youngsters last year, and if you want a replacement for Jerome Luai, like Blaise Talangi as a young player is incredible.
In their system as well, like under Ivan Cleary.
You watch that system, and Nathan and Jerome weren't normally the first receivers. It's Isaiah Yao who is pulling the strings everywhere, and then Cleary and Jerome Luai came in and did bits when they needed to. So I think their pinnacle point in that team is Isaiah Yao, and you see it when he comes on against for New South Wales in State of Origin. He's there pulling the strings, which I think he has over Jake within that side of things. And then within the pack, again, absolute animals who are just flying around. So yeah, I can't really see him doing much. You got Dylan Edwards at the back, who was incredible.
He's the best fullback in the game.
State of Origin. You got Liam Martin still in there as well. So it's it was a close one, but I think
my biggest question mark around Penrith is last season and the season before. I think Cleary was injured.
Yeah,
I know he's had his shoulder surgery, which should shore things up. But Jerome Luai was there and pulled the strings and done a phenomenal job when he wasn't there. He's not there now. It will be interesting to see if Cleary is managed or does go down with an injury and out for a certain period of time to see how they do. I'm not sure whether Cleary will be involved fully in Origin in a starting position because of, like you mentioned earlier, about how Moses did in the middle. Yeah. But I think it will be really interesting if Cleary does get a knock to see who then follows up from there. But as you mentioned, they've got talent all over the park. They've barely lost anyone. Yo, I think, is an absolute magician. Liam Martin hits anything with a pulse. Yeah. He's phenomenal. Yeah. Moses Leota is an animal. Again, someone that takes one off the back fence. Scott Sorensen has won, I think, all 4 premierships with them as well. So experience in there. They've got the best fullback in Dylan Edwards. They've signed a young gun in Tulagi, who I already said I think will be incredible in their system. They'll be strong. I just think they'll finish in the top 4. I think that's no doubt. I originally did have them 4th, but then I was like, hang on, Ben, wind your neck in. But they're not as strong as who we both agree is going to end the season minor premiers, and they were last year. The Melbourne Storm, they've hardly lost anyone. No. They've brought in arguably the Tigers' best player to strengthen their pack in Atoya Kamano. I mentioned it earlier. I think it's theirs for the taking. You can't count Penrith out in how good they are and just how efficient in what they do. But the fact that this squad played all of last season together, and they're only going to get better together as a unit. It's whether they can all stay healthy. But I believe it was Melbourne who beat Penrith in their first final before they went on the run of what they've done now. And I think unless the Sea Eagles reach the grand final, I personally also think that the Storm will face Penrith in the grand final, and I think they'll end their run of 4 in a row.
Yep. Exact same. They've restocked in the pack. backing that up, and their backs are incredible and work so hard together. You got Munster and Jerome Hughes. Jerome Hughes was incredible last year as he ran away with it was the Daily M. He ended up winning, wasn't it?
Yep.
Ran away with it last year. You got Ryan Pappenhausen at the back, just shoring things up. So yeah, I don't see them being too far away from where they were last year. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Feels like we've been talking for an age on this one, but look, the sport's going to be coming thick and fast from now on. We've got the start of the NRL season next week. We've got the ICC Champions Trophy coming up. We've got the Six Nations back again this weekend. So be sure to tune in next week. It's going to be another bumper episode, but thank you for listening along, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you later.